Hello, lovely ones, and welcome back. My name is Kimberly Benjamin Hudabin, and I am a double certified life coach. I specialize in empowering high achieving, beautiful women like yourself in needless suffering in marriage and love. And today we're going to talk about overgiving. Now, are you a victim of overgiving? Do you know? Do you know what I mean when I say that? Well, let me give you a little idea of what I'm talking about. You know, from the time that we're children, we are taught be nice, play fair. We're told things like, you hurt Susie's feelings, you did so and that made me angry. I mean, we're bombarded with these messages that teach us, program us to believe that our behavior is responsible for how someone else feels. Now, the way that this transfers into our lives in marriage and as adults is that we as women, and especially as wives, believe that if we give enough, if we do enough, if we take care of other people, if we, in other words, make someone else happy or don't make them sad or don't make them angry, then once they're happy, then in turn that's going to allow us to be happy, or they're going to give back to us what we need to be happy. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. And what happens is we end up giving to the point of depletion and frustration. This is actually what creates codependency in relationships. And it is such a death bell for marriage or for love in general, because if you're constantly trying to do something to make someone else happy, whether you want to do it or not, then what you're doing in actuality is you're taking responsibility for their feelings and you're denying your own feelings. So I want to help you out here to get a little more clear about this. I want you to think about some of the things that you do during the day. How many things do you do on a regular basis that you don't want to do? How often do you say no? How often do you say yes? Do you say yes to everything? It's very, very natural for us to do this. And we are never taught how to undo this once we're grown-ups. So what I want to help you do is understand that the reason that we do these things, like I said, is because we're programmed from childhood. And what we're actually doing is we are trying to avoid someone else's displeasure or anger or frustration, or again, working under that misconception that if we make them happy, this is particularly in relationships, in primary relationships, but especially in marriage. If we make our husbands happy, then everything's going to go well, right? If we make him happy, then he's going to understand how much we've sacrificed and what we've done and how wonderful we are. And he, in turn, is going to do things to make us happy. I want to give you a different way of looking at it. Because if you're here right now, that means that it probably isn't working out quite the way that you hoped that it would. So what I want you to think about is I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can use to recognize, understand, and begin undoing the overgiving that is creating frustration and hopelessness and anger for you. So the first step, and this is very often the most challenging one for all of us, is to actually choose love. What I mean by that is that love is always an option for us. Even when our husband is being unkind, even when he's mean, even if he is a naturally mean person and he says and does things all the time that create pain for us, we have to remember that our pain is created by the thoughts we have about what he does and what he says. And we can actually choose to love him regardless of what he does or says or doesn't do or doesn't say. We can choose love. And this is why this is so important for us to decide ahead of time that we choose to love this person. And I'm talking about even if you are in the process of divorce, even if you've divorced him, even if you can't stand to look at him, you can still choose to love him. And this is why this is so important, because what you're doing is for you. It is not for him. You are not choosing to love him to make him feel better. See, that's the first step in understanding what happens when we overgive. When we overgive, it creates resentment and frustration, and we feel like a victim. We feel like we have no control. We feel like we have no choice. When we choose love, when we make the choice to choose love, we are suddenly just in that simple process more empowered, more confident, because we are no longer a victim. We are making choice. And we can choose love even if he never ever changes. And I'm here to tell you that if you have children together, whether you stay married or not, you have a lifetime with this man. So choosing to love him will only make you feel better. It's not for him, it's for you. That's step number one, is choosing love. Step number two is stepping back. And before you say yes to anything, or before you begin your daily routine of things that you don't like to do, pause. Pause and ask yourself why you're doing it. Become aware of the reasons that you do the things you do. Because if you're doing them from some old programming, from some old thought patterns that tell you that you have to, I want to challenge you on that and ask you, do you really, really have to? Will the world stop revolving if you don't do those things? Is there anyone else that can do them? Are you overcompensating for your children? Are you overcompensating for your husband? So step number two is pause. Pause before you say yes to anything. Pause before you do anything that you just utterly, utterly dislike or that creates frustration and resentment for you. So step number one was to choose love. Step number two was to pause. And then step number three is to spend some time after you pause deciding if this is something that you want to do. How are you going to feel when you do this thing for this person? Are you going to feel energized? Are you going to feel good about yourself? Because that is the primary motivation that you need to be looking for. What are you doing that makes you feel good? Because if you're continuing to do things that create bad feelings for you, that means that there are some thoughts that you're having about what you're doing, which probably means you're right back in that place of victimhood. Because that is what turns into codependency. It's that triangle. When we do things that we don't want to do, we give out of frustration or avoidance of someone else's bad moods, or hoping that we can make them happy so that they'll make us happy. We are actually a victim. We're no longer in control. And that feels really, really awful. So then once we become resentful and angry, we turn into what they call a persecutor. Because we will, whether we verbalize it or not, we will have a tendency with that energy, because of the thoughts spinning around in our head, to take it out on the person that we're doing something for. And guess what happens then? Then we move into rescuer, because we feel so guilty and so badly because this is going against everything that we were ever taught or programmed to do, that we end up apologizing. And then the circle and the pattern starts over. So in order to get unstuck, to stop overgiving to the point of depletion and frustration and a sense of victimhood, step number one was choose love. You can always choose love. Love is an option, and love makes you feel good. And love means that you're in control. And love means that you're making a choice. And that alone will change everything for you. Step number two is pause. Pause before you do anything. And ask yourself why you're doing it. And then step number three was, once again, evaluating if it's truly something you have to do or if it's just something that you've always done. Because again, this brings back choice. So break that pattern of overgiving. Now, I know that I made this sound really simple, and the steps are simple, but of course that doesn't mean it's easy. So if you want to know a little bit more about it, by all means, go to my website, themarriagemythcure.com, send me an email, kim@themarriagemythcure.com. I will put all of these links in the show notes underneath, but just know that you can choose, lovely one. And there are ways, there are things that you can do to begin to break that pattern so that you're not constantly depleted and exhausted. And now that's it for today. I do want to invite you to join our private Facebook group, because I do lives like this every single week. And I have lots and lots of tips for you. And if you would like, you can email me. I have a worksheet that goes along with this show. Please email me for that, Kim@themarriagemythcure. Once again, Kim@themarriagemythcure. And I will happily send along the worksheet to you. I'd love to help you in any way that I can. So by all means, stay in touch. And until then, I'm going to say bisous.